Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to take a fully spoilery look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 74. Now again, this will be a fully spoilery look. So in order to give you a chance to click away, I'm going to tell you to go take a look at the links below the video and get yourself a copy of any one of my 4 books. I suggest Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, the second book of Human Absurdity, available on Amazon. Alright, Kaiju number 8, chapter 74. It is no surprise to anyone who read chapter 73 that this chapter is all about Vice Captain Hoshina and Kaiju number 10 duking it out and fighting all of the weird mutant grasshopper kaiju at the airport. But it's so much more than that is tied in here. It's no surprise that Matsumoto uses these combat-heavy rock'em sock'em kaiju chapters to layer in world building and plot progression and suggestions of things to come and things that have been. But not to bury the lead, I want to start off with what I think is what we're supposed to take away as the main takeaway of this chapter. Vice Captain Hoshina only manages to bring out the full potential of the Kaiju number 9 weapon when he starts... Vice Captain Hoshina only manages to bring out the full power of the Kaiju number 10 weapon when he settles down and focuses on treating Kaiju number 10 like a person instead of like a thing. And hear me out. One of Vice Captain Hoshina's superpowers, one of the things that makes him one of the most valued vice commanders in the Defense Force, is his ability to work with people, is his ability to get people to work together to do what he wants them to do. This is shown all throughout the training chapters, where he's egging Kafka on, getting him to go on, where he's coaxing the more traditional Defense Force officers into becoming better officers. It's seen in how he treats Kikoru differently than he does Reno. He treats Reno differently than he does Iharu, and he treats Iharu differently than he does Kafka. But that is because he is interacting with them like as genuine people, not just soldiers, not just things. That is Vice Captain Hoshina's true superpower. His ability to draw out 96% of his suit, any vice captain or captain can do that. His sword skill, he's clearly not the only blade user on the Defense Force. It's still a trained skill, even if it's not considered an important frontline ability anymore. He's not super tall. Everything about Vice Captain Hoshina's personality, from his haircut to his eyes to his build, there's nothing special about him, nothing that stands out as unique, except his ability to interact with other people. This would almost make him a main character in most manga, but he has speed, yes, but so does Kikoru. But anyway, so this is Vice Captain Hoshina's superpower, and it's not until he activates this superpower that he's able to work with Kaiju number 10. He starts at the end of the last chapter and at the beginning of this chapter, he starts treating number 10 essentially as a person, as someone with their own thoughts and feelings. Now, the way he does it is, you can call it manipulative, but only in the way that any teacher has to be oblique to manipulate their students to get their students to do them what they want to do. And this is where you start layering in the more of these links between Kaiju number 10, the little guy that started Kaiju number 8, and Kafka. So what am I talking about here? So you start off with Vice Captain Hoshina facing down the mutant grasshopper critters in the hangar of this airport. And unsurprisingly, the background artist, the koala guy, has done a fantastic job with this hangar. I have been in this hangar. I have seen those planes. The amount of research that goes into even the most minor background details is fantastic. But anyway, to the main point. Vice Captain Hoshina, Kaiju number 10. Vice Captain Hoshina has stopped trying to overpower and command Kaiju number 10 as if he were just a regular weapon, and starts relying on Kaiju number 10 and treating Kaiju number 10 as a person. the same way that he relies just a little bit, the way he said that way back in chapter, what was it, 23, 24 to Kafka, I trust 1% of you. He is trusting Kaiju number 10 to behave true to his type, to be who Kaiju number 10 is. And Kaiju number 10 does. Kaiju number 10 focuses so intently on what he's doing that he loses track of the fact that they've already defeated all of the opponents, whereas Vice Captain Hoshina is still focusing on everything. And they continue to battle like this, and the more trust, this small mustard seed grain of trust that Vice Captain Hoshina is giving Kaiju number 10, the more he gets out of the suit, and the more Kaiju number 10 starts giving back to him. And again, Vice Captain Hoshina is doing this in his own unique way, goading number 10 on the same way he goaded Kafka on. Remember him saying to Kafka, if you only have 1%, you're going to get kicked out of the defense force. Here he's saying to Kaiju number 10, you fail, look at all these shards. And Kaiju number 10 rises to the challenge. Then you have a panel that multiple people have pointed out in the online forums. On page 15, you have a 3/4 page panel, which is Vice Captain Hoshina making a statement as he crouches down, facing off against the Kaiju. This is a very, very similar style to what we saw way back in, what was it, chapter 18, chapter 19, when Vice Captain Hoshina faces down Kaiju number 8 for the first time. This was essentially the same pose that he assumed right before he went to, let's see, what's the verb? Subjugate, exterminate Kaiju number 8. This is the most obvious of the links drawn here between Vice Captain Hoshina, Kaiju number 10, and Kafka. Now, where this is going, I don't know. This is now 2 major lampshade level comparisons drawing a connection between Kaiju number 10 and Kafka from Vice Captain Hoshina's perspective. This is a visual one, and in the previous chapter, chapter 73, we got a text one, a word of mouth, a tell don't show one, where Vice Captain Hoshina deliberately compares Kaiju number 10 as Kafka as allies who are very boneheaded and have to do things the hard way. Then you have this extreme visual connection here on page 15 of chapter 74, and I don't see the third beat of that connection between Kaiju number 10 and Kafka yet, and so that suggests to me that we're going to see something in one of the upcoming chapters, that this is going somewhere. So my question is this: where is Matsumoto going, drawing this connection between Kaiju number 10 and Kafka Hibano in their relationship to Vice Captain Hoshina? Now, the most obvious place for this to be going would be a matter of trust and betrayal, especially because of that line that Vice Captain Hoshina gave Kafka, I trust 1% of you. Or rather, I have faith in 1% of you. So this could go one of 2 ways. We could be looking at a betrayal arc here, or let's just think for a minute here. Originally, you had Kafka, who did a major betrayal of trust to Vice Captain Hoshina, not intentionally, not deliberately, but Kafka went into the defense force knowing that he had a secret. And Vice Captain Hoshina suspected this from the beginning, but couldn't prove it. But then Vice Captain Hoshina bonded to Kafka. Well, how was it that he put it in the big reveal in chapter 32? I felt that something was off from the beginning, but I was taken in by your charm. That was Vice Captain Hoshina speaking about Kafka. And now Vice Captain Hoshina is, again, in a situation only much more extreme, where he has suspicion of someone he's supposed to work with, someone he is mentally and the artist is visually comparing to Kafka. in Kaiju number 10, but he is literally forming a bond with Kaiju number 10. Now, there's probably going to be orders of magnitude less trust and emotional bond between them for obvious reasons. But again, there's that layer. So, Kafka, the mirror of Kaiju number 10 in here, had his own goals, but was ultimately loyal to Vice Captain Hoshina. And Kaiju number 10 is Kaiju number 10 going to actually form that bond and yet betray Vice Captain Hoshina? Now, would it even be a betrayal if Kaiju number 10 is an infiltrator when he inevitably fulfills his duty and does something to harm the Defense Force? Would that even count as a betrayal of the Defense Force? They're using him as a weapon. Everybody kind of knew the deal going in. Technically, yes, it would. But anyway, are we going to look at an actual relationship forming between Vice Captain Hoshina and Kaiju number 10? Because we know Vice Captain Hoshina is susceptible to those sorts of relationships forming. And then are we going to look at Kaiju number 10 either deliberately or inevitably betraying him? Or will Kaiju number 10, like Kafka, having his own goals, still turn out loyal to Vice Captain Hoshina because of this relationship that they form? I don't know, but there is definitely a very, very obvious parallel being lampshaded here between Kaiju number 10 and Kafka, and I am very interested to see how it's going. Now, there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention. Way back when, I don't even remember how long ago, I posted a question on Reddit saying, why does Matsumoto keep drawing only one eye visible on Vice Captain Hoshina? I went back and checked, and this was January of 2 years ago. It was at the end of chapter 26, after Vice Captain Hoshina's first combat scene with Kaiju number 10. Now, if you look at the cover for Kaiju number 8, volume 4, Vice Captain Hoshina is again drawn with one eye. Now, the first time I noticed this was on page 19, the final page of chapter 26, and it struck me as being odd enough because at the angle that Vice Captain Hoshina was drawn, both eyes should have been clearly visible. Yes, his hair was hanging down, but yes, there was a shadow over it, but there was no reason for his right eye in that image to not be visible. So I posted a question on Reddit, and the general answer that I got was that due to time constraints and the difficulty of drawing faces with the proper mix of symmetry and vantage point, it's just a lot easier and saves time to only draw one eye. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense, but it just really, really stuck out to me at the time. Now, looking back, knowing what a master of hiding major plot points behind common shonen tropes Matsumoto is, in retrospect, this was our first hint of the forming bond between Vice Captain Hoshina and Kaiju number 10. Because you see Kaiju number 10's single eye squinting at you from page 18, and you see Vice Captain Hoshina's eye squinting at you from page 19. You're really not half bad, says Kaiju number 10. And then Vice Captain Hoshina saying, alrighty, time to neutralize. Then 50 odd chapters down the road, we have them battling it out in the airport's hangar with the small planes, forming that emotional bond that we've been talking about for this entire video. So, those are my thoughts on Kaiju number 8, chapter 74. That we are watching the development of an emotional connection that is clearly and visibly in a pure lampshade manner being made to mimic the close emotional bond between Kafka and Vice Captain Hoshina. And where is Matsumoto going with this? Normally, I would just say it's leading up to be an emotionally impactful mirror image of Vice Captain Hoshine's relationship with Kafka when Kaiju number 10 inevitably betrays them, except for another element. In this chapter, Vice Captain Hoshine is manipulating Kaiju number 10 with the E, not in the same way that he manipulates his essentially grown soldiers, but in the way that a kindergarten teacher would manipulate a toddler, mirroring the emotional relationship between the little guy and Kafka and Reno. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Kaiju number 10 is as much of a child soldier as the little guy would be. And Kaiju number 10 is definitely showing his emotional immaturity here. He has this incredible intellect, but his emotions are very, very much that of a child, which it probably reflects the real amount of time he's been alive and forming emotional connections. So perhaps Kaiju number 10 won't betray Vice Captain Hoshine. Perhaps Vice Captain Hoshine will betray Kaiju number 10. Perhaps Kaiju number 10 is bonding and imprinting on Vice Captain Hoshine in the same way that little guy was bonding and imprinting on Kafka and Reno. You'll know what I mean about that if you looked at any of my previous videos. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Where is Matsumoto going with this bond that's forming between Kaiju number 10 and Vice Captain Hoshine? Hit that like and subscribe button, and remember, I love to overanalyze. I love to look at the deep emotional tones and themes of stories, but also bang, pow, biff, whop! This was an awesome combat chapter, and I just reveled in reading it again and again for this review. Alright, hit that like and subscribe button, go check out a copy of my book for my Humans Are Weird series, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.